Welcome to Treasure Valley Podcast. I'm Chuck. Today's episode is brought to you by LowerGentry Studios. Subscribe to LowerGentry Studios on YouTube and you will get updates of new episodes of this podcast, as well as new episodes of Canyon County, the web series. You can see episode 1 right now on this exact same YouTube channel, so you should check it out after this podcast. Definitely stick around for the entirety of this podcast. I sit down and chat with Morgin Madison. He is an electronic music composer. He talks a lot about his secrets to success. He has a lot of valuable information to share, especially for those of you that are looking to break through with your material to an audience. So enjoy. And we're recording.
Oh yeah, man. I'm
Welcome,
excited.
Morgan.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to come out here today and chat about your music.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were just about to get into the topic of how you make your music.
Yeah.
And you were baffled by the headphones. And
yeah, I've never used a headphone mixer. You know, it's kind of like...
Yeah, we got our own separate volume. I realized that it's much better than a splitter because I played guitar for years when I was in high school and college, and so like my hearing has definitely suffered. Because I was that stereotypical guitar player that liked to turn the guitar up louder than all the other people in the band.
That seems to be a common problem, man.
Yeah, I know. We're just jerks like that, though.
Yeah,
it's like, I want to be able to hear myself. And they're like, we need to be able to hear ourselves. But anyway, so...
Yeah. I started on drums, actually.
Oh, okay.
I've been drummer for like 12 years, and that was always my problem. It was like I couldn't play gently, you know?
Oh, okay.
So just like bang the crap out of the set, and like you'd have to hook somebody up to like a huge PA system to just get it to sound right. And
I suppose. Yeah, the drums they definitely have one volume if you're playing them loud.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, I mean,
so you played drums for a long time, and now you do electronic music.
Yeah.
How do you compose? Tell me about that process. I'm not super familiar with the electronic end of things. I have FL Studio on my computer, which is how I do the music for a lot of the films that we release. And so is it similar to that?
I mean, I used Ableton Live 10
right
now, or I started on 8 and then I went to 9 and 10, and I just use like 15 different VSTs, like I just have like my own unique setup with synthesizers and my sample libraries that I hunt for, and just sort of over time like I use Ableton, and I'll plug like synthesizers in and just compose the music. But it all happens different. Like a lot of my music
VST is
virtual studio technology, I think it stands for.
Oh, okay.
So like it's literally like you just drag like Silent or Massive, or I'm sure like all the hip hop guys know what Massive is.
Okay.
Because it's like really good for like 808s and bass music. And,
oh, okay. Got it.
Or Serum, or just like all of it, really.
808's a very famous drum synthesizer.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big hip hop thing, like for a while, was like just get FL and have Massive, and because like it's so easy to make 808s and a synth like Massive and things like that. But basically what I do is under the Morgin Madison stuff, I started really taking like the root of it will always be like a good sample. And go find like a royalty free like sung phrase or something like that, and maybe sometimes cut the syllables up into something that isn't necessarily like a word, but it's like a catchy like on Spotify. If you look at my song Better Days, there's no words at all. It's just like human voices singing something, you know. So,
and that's a cool track too, by the way. That was one obviously that I click on first because that's the first one that pops up on Spotify when you search your name.
Yeah, which is interesting because it's not my most like popular track. Like,
oh, okay.
The thing is, like, as an electronic guy, like you want to focus on, especially when you're on the come up, you like, well, in any form of music, really, like playlisting is like a really big deal. So you want to, not that you want to compromise to be on a playlist, but like when I first started out, it was like, you know, I'd quit my job and it was like, how am I going to actually do this? You know, it's like, even if I'm really good at making the music, like how feasibly do you get enough plays to like make a living, you know?
Yeah. Are you there?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I mean,
congratulations.
Yeah. That's what
awesome.
I do. Yeah. It's been pretty crazy. Like I've only been up for doing it for like a year, and last weekend actually I had like my first guest mix on SiriusXM Chill.
Okay, I saw that on Facebook. I don't have XM, SiriusXM, unless there's a way to stream it.
It's all good.
Oh, okay.
I think it's an interesting. They're kind of doing an interesting thing. Like it comes like stock in cars.
Yeah,
and then like
I sold cars for a year, so I am familiar with
that.
that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you like people probably asked you. They're like, "Am I gonna have to like pay for this or like what's the deal?" But yeah,
they give you a year free. GM used to. I mean, I don't know what it is now.
Really, it's a year.
They used to do a year. I sold cars in 2005, so I'm sure things have changed since then. But it was kind of that satellite tracking technology, like OnStar, was just coming out right at that time, and so they'd give you the radio. And at that time, it was amazing, because the reception was really awesome, and then like the content was really great compared to just what was coming on over the air.
Yeah,
but, since then, like Steve Jobs came out with that little iPhone thing, and
that
kind of changed everything.
Yeah, it's been it's like the industry's definitely fluctuated like in terms of like music consumption and everything. So
you were featured on Sirius on one of their shows.
Yeah. Well, originally what happened was I came out with an EP called Destinations late last year, and one of the singles from the EP got picked up. I think it's still playing on SiriusXM.
Okay.
Channel 53, which is like just the chill electronic channel.
Okay.
So there's like two real electronic channels. I mean, there's like channel 52, which is like bangers, just bro step, and not really, but like it's like heavier like electro sort of music, and then
stuff that you can just get up and dance to all night.
Yeah.
On ecstasy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
not that I would know.
Yeah, whatever your preference may be, but I would definitely say that's the channel to do it with.
Okay.
But yeah, and then 53 is like it's got a lot of house music.
Okay.
It's still like you can still play it like in clubs and everything, but it's more like relaxed and artistic on that channel. So
cool. So how did you? So you were working a job, which I thought was interesting. I was telling you earlier, I read your TreeFort bio, and it says lobbyist turned musician. Yeah. Which, I mean, is such a cliche, right?
Well, like
there's so many of you.
Oh yeah, like to make that switch.
Yeah, lobbyists turned musicians.
No, yeah. I mean, I think it's cool. Like I always like to put that in there because it's just like I don't know. I think it's kind of cool that someone can go from like a political-ish job and then just like go the other end of the spectrum and just be honest about it,
There was I was actually just listening this morning to Hidden Brain. I don't know if you're familiar with that podcast at all. It's an NPR one where they talk about like human psychology, sociology, and stuff.
Oh, and, I've listened to this a couple times.
So, and I wrote this down too because I thought it was kind of interesting. So Yo-Yo Ma has this group, and they're called the Silk Road Missionaries. And so they're all different people from different cultures that come together, and then they make an amalgam. Like they just basically get together and jam.
That sounds sick.
And so it's trying to mix all these different ethnic types of music, and they enjoy it because they come up with different ideas. And so I think it's kind of interesting that you were a lobbyist, and I wonder how that influences what you do, because a lot of times unrelated things can come together and make something that's different, unique, and better than what a lot of people just follow the path. Yeah. Normally, I was wondering if that had any influence your lobbying experience on.
I mean, definitely. Like, I don't know if it would like the main driver always like when you like go into music or something you love, it's just because you love to do it, you know. But like, I definitely think my background, because like growing up around DC and my parents were involved in politics like my whole life, and it definitely sort of like gave me a drive to like work hard, I guess, and like honestly assess whether I could do it or not. Like when I actually quit, and I don't think I wasn't strictly a lobbyist. I just worked with like a firm that did that. So like my technical title was like public affairs manager.
Oh, okay.
And I really just
I bet that helps, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you can't just like I can't really write in my bio like like a former public affairs man. Like it'd be like people would be like, what is that? So but basically like to preface this, so like what happened was I was at that job and I released an album under like a different name than Morgin Madison, because my friend and I were like doing sort of like an interesting content platform, and we were like streaming all our video games, uploading just like movie reviews, and then like I was releasing music under that name. It was just like a fun way to just release like a bunch of multimedia content. And I released like a full-length album with no singles. I just dropped it like into the streaming services and everything under that previous name. Okay. And then Apple got in contact with my distributor and was like, we want to like get this guy's permission to use his album art and the promotional materials for the HomePod.
Okay.
So I was like, I just like I was at my job like randomly one day and I got this email from the head of artist relations at TuneCore, which was the distributor I was using.
Okay.
And he's like, hey, we got this thing from Apple. They want to like use your album assets like in their marketing. And I'm like, you serious? And he was like, yeah. It was just out of the blue.
Am I getting trolled here or what?
Because I put the album out and it was like really experimental and the whole internet was just taking a dump on me.
Oh, okay.
And like, not that the production was bad. It was just like, how are we, like, what crowd is this catered to and blah, 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 blah.
Mm.
And so when that Apple thing happened, I was like, okay, well, I guess, I can form something that's like professional and like do it. So like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
I was just like, that's cool, And so I had like a good amount in savings and I was just like, guys, I'm out, I'm going to go do this thing. I'm really passionate about it and I think I can do it.
Sweet.
So then I left and I took about 6 months to like really like take my production skills to like the next level. And then I launched Morgin Madison. And
how did that look? The production, getting your production skills up?
Yeah. I mean, it was like, I was probably like 80% there on, well, 70 to 80% like to professional, like just there.
Okay.
When I quit. But the problem that I learned on that previous music was like, no matter how good you are at like your instrument or your particular niche type of music, how are you going to market that? Like the best guitar solo in the world or like the best track in the world objectively without a proper rollout or plan as to where it's going to go and to who it's going to go to is kind of like, it's never going to see the light of day. So
okay.
I basically, yeah.
Been there.
Yeah, it's a huge like thing. And it takes like just a lot of like self-analysis and like just brutal criticism in order to like, for me at least, like to learn what to do with that. So
you're talking about on the production end, not the music creation end. You're talking about the marketing. Yeah.
I mean, so honestly, I don't know. It's like, even if you have like bad music and your marketing is like 100% correct, or like if you hit like a niche, like that's why guys like Lil Pump are viral,
Mm-hmm.
It's like this.
I'm not familiar with Lil Pump.
Yeah. I mean, I don't listen to Lil Pump, but it's just an example of like, it's this like kid with like pink dreadlocks, and he puts out like just, his songs are just like bad, like just like really bad rap songs. They're like 2 minutes long.
Okay.
And I think one of them's like, literally half the lyrics like to Gucci Gang, which was like his big breakout, was like Gucci Gang. Like he's just saying Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang, Gucci Gang. Like I don't know if you want to go
I'm
listen
into
to
this
it
now all of a sudden.
Like and it just went totally viral. And
yeah.
And it was just because like who's gonna forget that? Like there's like a 16-year-old with pink dreads saying Gucci Gang over and over again, and that was it. And like for me it was more like
finding a balance between Gucci Gang and like actually writing good music.
I think that's an extreme example, but it's more like when you put your song out, like when you get it to streaming services, like how do you point the ears to the thing?
Yeah.
And I started to realize like when I was launching that no matter who you are, like rap or like electronic, country, whatever you are, I started doing research on Spotify specifically because Spotify was one of the first streaming services to open their metrics system. So like it tells you how many plays are on it. Yeah. So like they were one of the first to do that, to my knowledge, besides SoundCloud, but no one uses SoundCloud anymore because they died for some reason. And
I pay for Spotify, so I'm just there all the time.
Yeah, I mean it's the best platform for like exposure, especially because of like Discover Weekly and everything. But like when I rolled out, I started to realize that most of these people who have like 2 million monthly listeners or whatever, probably 70% of their, or 60 to 70% of their listenership was coming from instance-based listeners that were running into their music on playlists.
Okay, instance-based listeners.
So like, let's say like, I'm like a chill pop artist, like electronic artist, and I make songs that are like palatable to like the chill tracks or fresh and chill playlists on Spotify. Each of these playlists have like 1 to 2 million followers. Some of them have like 5 million. Okay. So there are people who pay for Spotify, and then they say Spotify, like when you open the app, it's got these playlists that are like, hanging with friends, like night out. It's just like, well, let me throw this on, you know?
Got it. Yeah, that is something. I don't use that feature because I have just like all this. I just sit and make playlists for myself all the time.
Right. Yeah.
But people do make public playlists that everyone can download on or download as well if you pay for it and listen to. Okay, so you're talking about. So you're finding you're marketing yours to those individuals then? Is that how it went? Or
it's been an interesting path. So like the first song I put out was called Dream, and it was like this like borderline orchestral like build piece with like orchestra drums and then the drop hits, and it's like enormous sounding like and that did all right because I was able to like literally my grind was like for a while when I was self-releasing at first it was like put the song out and then I would spend literally 15 hours like I would type in like if the song sounds like Odessa for instance, I would type in Odessa in the Spotify search, find every single person who had created a sizable playlist themed around that genre of music, and then I would find them on Twitter. I would message them and be like, "Hey, I'm this new guy. Here's my song. Like, would you want to support it?"
Okay.
And so eventually, like, I think it got on like like 2 major like future-based playlists, and then like like an instrumental study playlist or something like that.
Okay.
And so like, I mean, it's like one of my smallest songs, but at the time it was like, 500 plays a day on your first song's like cool. That's a cool thing when you finally see like your song pass 1,000 on Spotify or whatever.
Yeah.
And then so after that, like I released a couple like tropical house tracks because I started to realize that like I was better at making like 4 on the floor beats and everything like that. And then Better Days happened like 2 months into Morgin Madison, and that got picked up by like Spotify's official playlists, and it got on like I think one called like Tropisk House and like House Chill Out. And
okay.
So then it started doing like 2,000-3,000 streams a day. And then it gets like once like you get thrown into Discover Weekly, which is their algorithmic stuff, then your catalog
I use that
like
all the time.
Yeah,
I use
dude.
Discover Weekly every single week. I have it set to automatically download, and then I listen to it on my drive to work and my drive home because I've said this on other podcasts, but when they've done a study when you're 32, you don't listen to new music. Like Spotify released it. Most people don't, and I'm adamant about making sure that I'm exposing myself to as much new music as possible, so I don't get stuck in that rut.
Yeah, I mean, it's also good, like, because people like that, like, and that's the cool part is like when people start to like pass, like 22 years old, they actually get passionate about like a certain sound, and they'll start to like follow smaller artists and like really know what they want, and like that's why people get like longer careers, and that's one of the things that Spotify is really good about. Is like once you start to gain traction, it's like then you get thrown in these algorithms. Like if I was to stop making music today, there would still be like thousands of listeners for probably like a few years.
Because people just keep reading.
Because it's just like like in terms of metrics, like once you get things circulating, it's kind of like I don't know. It's kind of like a weird like human body of music. It's like the blood gets flowing, and you have no idea where like your music's gonna be. It's like I think Better Days is at like almost 1.4 million.
Wow.
So it's like I don't know who's like that's all Discover Weekly too. I think like 11% of that is their editorial playlists.
Oh, interesting.
Because the more like you get thrown into these playlists where people run into your music, like they like streaming services pay attention to the ratio of like repeat listens and like saves and stuff like that,
and then they push your stuff up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So for instance, like when Better Days got on Tropisk House February 2018, like a year ago.
Okay.
It stayed on there, like, and there are a lot of other songs that get into like Tropisk House or like House Chill Out, and this is really minor stuff, like compared to like people that are like way farther down the road than me. But like for me, it was like I need to get on these playlists because if I have to go back to like working a day job and I can't do this, all my energy is going to be drained.
Yeah.
And like that's going to show through in my art, So
yeah.
Basically, like once you're in like a big playlist like that, they use like at least from what I can tell and from what I've heard, it's like if the song does well, if it has like a lot of saves and like people listen to it all the way through a lot, then like they'll keep it on the list or like rise it up, like change the placement and stuff. So
you basically fought your way through that initial layer by manually contacting as many people.
That's what it sounds like. You have to do me. Like you have to do everything you can. Yeah.
Now it's kind of taken on its own life.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And like the coolest thing that ever happened to me too was like back in October, my song "Sensational Love," which is like the Sirius XM one that they play. That one I think was on like a couple indie playlists, which by indie I mean like not Spotify hosted, like community hosted playlists.
Okay.
Like that was on a couple of those for about a month, and then the rest of like I think it's like almost 110,000 today or something like that. All of those have been organic, which is way more valuable because those
you have
are
your audience then.
Yeah. And
That's
those are people actually looking it up, and like because when something plays on like Sirius Radio and you're in your car, like Morgin Madison pops up on your dash, and like it's not like let me browse Instagram while I listen to Discover Weekly. It's more like you're like forced to listen to that song, you know. So like it's a lot more like, of like a direct connection. But
yeah, that's cool. How did you go down that rabbit hole of pushing your music through those different avenues and through Twitter and things like that? What led you to that realization?
I don't know. I just realized like, I think, I just like when I released, Dream, like the very first song I released, which is like a long time ago now, it's like a year and a few months.
Okay.
I was like, I sort of realized, the first day there were just like 0 plays. And I was like, oh, like no matter like what I make, like no one's gonna work harder for me than me. So
that's true.
I was like, there's no reason at all. Like I quit my job. There's absolutely no reason at all. I couldn't take time out of my day to message every human being physically possible that would be interested in this song. And like, that's just what I did. And like, it was a hell of a grind. Like I don't really do that anymore on release days because now it's like I work with like a variety of different labels, and they have like a marketing infrastructure in place usually. And like the next major song I have coming out is like through a Warner Brothers label. And that's coming out like February 22nd. And in that case, I don't have to do any like playlist pitching at all because like their infrastructure is like so powerful, you know?
Oh, cool. So that led you to that initial work, just led you to the being able to put that in the back burner then.
Yeah.
As far as the marketing's concerned, and you can focus on the art.
Yeah.
Which is the struggle for all of us out there that are trying to produce content and get viewers is that balance between how much time do you put into doing what you're passionate about and how much time do you put into the marketing aspect and selling yourself, which oddly enough, it seems like there's so many artists that are introverted. And so it's really difficult to find that. It's hard. I mean, I commend you for that because that battle is real on the video end too. Just having to sit and think of clever things to post on social media and different avenues, ways you can contact people to get more followers and garner all that. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. It's like definitely drives you insane. You start to think like it's kind of like it really does make you go crazy. Like it's just so much work to like build like an audience, and then like for me the other thing too lately has been, you know, okay, so what, you know, like you got like millions of streams from these services, like people are listening, so how now do you make it translate to a tangible long-term career?
Yeah, what's your plan for that? Are you still figuring that out?
No, I mean, like I every song I've done lately or it has upped the ante.
Okay.
And so like I'm gonna be putting out like an official remix for Lay Youth soon as well, and like a few other things. But the problem I'm seeing, especially, and I can really only speak to like electronic market, like, you know, the market with like bands and everything's different.
Yeah.
But like in electronic music, there's a kind of an issue right now where it's like the chill stuff, the stuff that's like catchy and poppy and chill, like does really well in a listening context, which is why so many people like save my stuff. But in terms of getting like a crowd that's like super passionate and wants to come out to like a tour, it's like, you know, how are we going to do that basically? And that's my last EP sort of went more towards club music. Like it's like 4 on the floor. And what I'm really passionate about is like deep house and tech house and nightclub stuff, because I think that atmosphere is really like unique. And it was there. I mean, it was there like in the 80s, there in the 90s, it was there in the 10s or the 2000s, there in the 10s. It hasn't budged.
Yeah.
And whereas this whole like streaming culture based off like playlist exposure has only come about in like the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, I mean, in my opinion, it's sort of like generated this huge chasm between like stats and like a real career, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the next time Spotify is going to half their royalties because they've already done that.
Oh, yeah, I suppose. And it's got to be just supply and demand.
Yeah.
And the demand is whatever, their supply is their service, but it's also the music.
Yeah.
And so the more music that gets uploaded, the more people, the smaller your share of the pie.
Yeah.
I would just about imagine.
I was talking to a guy the other day. I think he said it's something like, I can't remember if it's 30,000 new artists a day or if it's 50,000 per week.
Oh my gosh.
Something like that.
That's a lot either way.
Yeah. And so what you're starting to see is like this huge problem where like, so there's a couple different pillars of it too. It's like, first of all, like Spotify completely changed the market. Like it completely obliterated like the previous systems of consuming music. Like,
yeah,
like with Discover Weekly, and what they've essentially done now is like the stats are just stats. Like it's not before, like if you go on iTunes or Apple Music, you still don't see how many times someone's being streamed. And like, no matter how professional your profile looks on Spotify, like if your numbers aren't there, like they're not there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where they're coming from, you know? So, which is always something that has to come first. But like the problem that I'm trying to deal with is like, you know, that the market's so volatile right now and the stats are there for me to work with to like launch off into whatever direction I need to go next in order to get to that next thing. But the other problem is like, for my catalog personally, who do we like, if I need to go to a promoter or a manager to book like an opening spot, or they want to throw me in like a tour or something hypothetically, it's like, who do we market this guy to? Like I've got like a trap banger, a tropical house song, and then like a chill down tempo song. It's like a lot of those genres and stuff I create are like clashing with each other.
Okay.
So like there's a lack of consistency too, but yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but I could talk about it for hours.
Yeah. It's kind of sounds like you're on the back end of what a lot of performance artists. It sounds like you're basically you're on the digital end, and you need to bust in through to the live end because live music has been happening since the beginning of time. Is that kind of where your thought process is as far as like where you need to go next?
Yeah, it's like
okay.
I love like DJ sets. Like I love like deep house, like 2-hour DJ sets, like by guys like Lane 8 or like Yodo or Eric Prydz, Deadmau5 style stuff. I think in a live setting that works really well, and I think people really identify with that. But the problem is, when I started, like if I was to come out the gate with like a bunch of deep house, I didn't know who to market that to, and I wouldn't be on the radio right now if I was only making deep house. But at this point, I'm starting to realize like to get into a tour circuit, like I don't know, it's like there's this like really annoying balance of like business versus music once you get to that point. And it's like, how do you properly put out art that you care about, but also keep it consistent enough that promoters are going to know exactly how to sell you for every different festival and things like that, you know?
What did one of your live sets look like? What is that?
It's a DJ set.
Okay.
So like I'll do like half my stuff's like house.
Okay.
And so I'll play a lot of that. But I mean, it's kind of the problem I'm having too, is like only my recent stuff that I've put out really works in a live context. I can't play piano. I can't play guitar. The only thing I can play is drums.
Okay.
So like I can't just like show up with a whole drum set at like a nightclub, you know, it's like, it's not going to work. And so, and I'm really good at DJing too. And so I'm kind of trying to move more towards that because I think there's a really cool club culture like around house music. And I think it really works well. Like last week, the guys at SiriusXM gave me barely a day notice. They're like, hey Morgan, like, you know, do you care if we play your guest mix on SiriusXM again this weekend? And then like I get an email 10 minutes later. He goes, wait, like, am I going crazy? You did a guest mix, right? If not, do you want to do a guest mix? And so I wake up at 8:30 that morning, read the email, and I'm like, yeah, like, what's the procedure and timeline? He's like, well, we're gonna have to get it today, or, you know, in order to play it this weekend. So I recorded my voice intro, and just DJ'd the whole set in one take, and then just like shipped the WAV file over to them, and then it aired like the following night.
Oh, sweet.
So it was like,
that's pretty stressful though.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty stressful, but it's like, I don't know, DJing is just like a really interesting art form to me because, like, if you only, for instance, I only spend like a minute and a half on each song,
Okay.
and I like to mix like a lot in key. So, like, when the songs are meshing together and like between the drops and the builds and everything like that, there are a lot of interesting variations of how you can sort of like build up the energy before you drop into the next thing and everything like that.
What does that look like? Because like I said, I was telling you earlier, I got into the FL Studios. I haven't really messed with anything since, like, a friend of mine had like a DJ set in 2003, which was literally the two vinyl turntables with the slide.
Yeah.
How has that changed in like the last however long that would be, 15 years?
Yeah, I mean, it really hasn't. It's
okay.
it's like the base form of what DJing is like, or like primarily accessible DJing. Like, you're not gonna see me up there like flicking the vinyl around, the scratching,
Yeah.
But like, it goes down to the question of like when you're like a composer, like what is live? Like when you're just like a one guy composer.
Okay.
It's like, if you listen to my songs, I'll take vocals from like singers and everything like that, and I'll design the song around it. It'll be like a really cohesive vision and everything, but there's not really a way to do it live except DJing. Like, it's like, what am I supposed to do? Like, get on stage and have like a little APC 40 set up and just play one lead synth? Like, like like if I just play one lead synth in front of a crowd, like it's just gonna be my head like inside. It's just gonna be me looking down like this and playing some stuff. That's not really exciting.
Yeah.
What is exciting is like how is like building like a journey of a set that's like 2 hours long.
Yeah.
With a bunch of banging music that's like emotional but still clubby and things like that.
And then being able to kind of feed off the audience as far as where you want to go next.
Yeah.
With all of that. That's cool.
It's way more casual than like, it's interesting because like you can sort of build like a really cool journey when you do that, but it also got me thinking about like what is live. Like if you look at like a rock band, like it's cool that they have the skill to just sort of replicate what's on the album, but like strictly speaking, when you see like a rock band live, you're literally playing just an ear damaging, less clear version of like what's on the album, unless the guitarist goes out and plays like a solo, in which case like that's really cool, or like a drum solo or something like that. But I don't even think DJing exists in like the same realm. It's more like how you present it, and like it's just the cleanest form of like displaying electronic music, in my opinion. And there's a good reason why it's the industry standard too. Yeah. Because like the thing is, like if I keep going like in the house music direction and like deep house and tech house, like you can throw me in a nightclub. You could throw me in an opener slot on a tour with like a bigger like trance act, or something like that. It's so palatable. Whereas if it was a live setup and I got a drummer, a guitarist to play like some of those guitar parts, which I'm moving away from anyway. It's going to be more synths in the future. Okay. So it's like, I mean, you'd have to lug all that gear. You could basically only do like hard ticket sales shows at like venues like where you have to sell hard tickets. And that's the other thing too, is like a lot of electronic is based off of like soft tickets. So like, it's like,
what's the difference there?
So like soft ticket sales, like it's like a festival booking. So like, okay. So people buy like a pass or like
right on
a ticket to a tour, for instance. Like, let's say I was to hop on, like this would never happen, but like let's say like someone like Eric Prydz, who's like a deep club record like legend. Okay. Let's say he's gonna go on a tour to like promote his new album, which he's probably not gonna put out another album, but just hypothetically, if I go in the opener slot, it's more about like what my catalog looks like and my general recognition and statistics rather than how many more tickets are going to sell because Morgan's on the billing. Okay. So like, I mean, and that's another hard question too, is like how long until these new acts that are coming up through the streaming culture actually sell their own tours, So it's like a lot of electronic music is we're going to go because there's a sick lineup, like 7 Lions is playing, XYZ artist, XYZ, we're going to catch them at this time, blah, 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 blah. Whereas like when they go on their own tours, they don't really sell that much. So like a lot of guys in the business now will like they'll have like a $30,000 flat fee to play at festivals because of their like reputation that they carry. But like sometimes when they go through a tour, like in the West, somewhere random like Idaho or like in the Midwest or like a market that isn't really too into them, they'll only sell like 4 tickets. Wow. And so like the venue will have to like comp the rest of the tickets and or whatever. And
so that's different than in the electronic music realm.
That's
is that
how
what you're saying?
That's how it is in the electronic realm.
So you have to basically get a tour together, like Lollapalooza almost, but with
I mean, like
those musicians to get it to
I mean
stick.
It's even less about touring too. Like where I want to go is more like club culture.
Okay.
Which is like, you know, if you have like a 200 person cap club, like usually like the people who go are part of like a larger scene. So like there'll be like you know, Friday nights at like some like resident club in Miami. They'll announce like their summer DJs that are residents, and like they'll show up and DJ, and like it's part of like a more like an embedded culture, whereas like a band basically is like, we're going to record an album, we're going to take 2 years to record that album, and then we're going to tour the album for 2 years, and then we're going to record another album, and it's like in this alternating wave.
Yeah.
Whereas like with like what I do, basically you can drop music so fast, and like it sort of fits into like a larger, like as long as I stick with house, basically it'll fit into like a larger culture, because everyone else is playing everyone else's tracks, and like of course when you play live you want to play like 80% of your own music, or else it's like, why are people there, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
that's cool. I like the way you describe it too. As far as that live performance, some of the worst concerts I've ever been to are the ones where I thought, why didn't I just play the album at home? You know,
dude, I know.
I hate it. And
it's
so
like
I was a Fish fan when I was in college, so I did the shows. You know what I mean? Like I went to the 40,000 people and like with the tents and like the whole thing. And so when I started off with that, which their stuff sounds nothing like the album at all. When you go see them live, I mean, they'll play like a couple songs, but then they just go off on these like tangential jams, and you're there for like 4 hours. And
that's really the best.
They're feeding off the crowd. But so I really dig that, and so that's what I look for when I go to see live music. Either something I haven't seen before, which TreeFort is amazing for that, because you can just be walking around and, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and it doesn't matter if it sounds like the album or not, because you're not exposed to it. But then also like those groups that you go see live, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is an added experience.
Yeah,
you know. But that's cool. I mean, the electronic and actually, I just started thinking about it within the last year, because there's a documentary on Netflix about the history of hip hop.
Oh,
have you
really?
seen that?
No, I haven't.
Okay, it's super interesting because they talk about in New York, basically what happened was that a lot of the hip hop artists started just by, you know, they called it breakdancing, but they were using their vinyl, their parents' vinyl records as their instrument, because they didn't have any money to like get a guitar.
Oh, you mean like the sampling?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so they'd start sampling on that, and then they'd mark on the vinyl like where the different parts are, and then they'd connect 2-3 vinyl players together and then mix them, and that's how it all started. And then they'd watch, they'd play at the parties, and then they'd keep the break going so that everybody could dance to it, and then someone would start emceeing and shouting out their friends and stuff, and then hip hop.
Yeah,
it was really interesting. But
that's actually super similar. It's cool that you bring that up. Like, that's really interesting, because like a lot of people will say, like, I remember when the sampling debate was like really big in hip hop. It's like, because I took like a music course back when I was way younger, and the big debate was, is sampling okay? Like if Kanye West is going to use like just a looped sample and just rap over it for 4 minutes, did he really do that much work? It's like, then it's not really the point. Like the point is like, is the end result something you enjoy? I mean, it doesn't really matter like how they got there. So like when you see like Kanye West live, like he's actually doing a lot less than a DJ. Like he's literally like we'll play the track and he'll like jump around and just like rap over the track. But you know what? It's hype and people love it and it works, and that's fine. And so like I don't know. It's an interesting debate for sure.
Yeah, I don't see. I mean, everything comes from something before. Like,
yeah.
I guess when you sample, it literally is that piece, but it's still an amalgamation of all those other pieces on top of it, and what you hear, and almost like a filter, like a personal filter. You know, I mean, that's all artists are. They're just taking whatever they see or hear and then putting it through their filter and then regurgitating so that you can see how they see it. Is the way I think about it. You know?
Yeah, it's definitely true, man. I mean, the other thing too is, you know, it's interesting that you brought up the sampling. Is like in dance music and electronic music, like at least for me and a lot of other people in the generation of music makers that I'm in, like one of the most respected electronic albums like of all time is Daft Punk's Discovery.
Oh, okay.
From like 2001.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've listened to that one all the way through. Daft Punk is one of those groups that's on my Spotify list.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like that album is all samples. Like the genre of French house that these guys like revolutionized dance music and house, like period. Like they're like one of the pioneers of like bringing house into a new life and everything like that. But every hit record that they put out was like basically sampled, and then they would just take a vocoder and make their, you know, the signature robot voices.
Yeah.
Make some cool vocals that are catchy and repetitive, and like that was it. But it didn't matter that like probably their biggest hit is, I mean, aside from their newer stuff, which is interesting, but like their biggest hit's like that song "One More Time," and "One More Time" is just a looped sample of a disco soul track.
Yeah.
It takes like one bar of that track and just goes da 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 da. That's the whole song.
Yeah.
The whole song. And then like the break is just like them with like auto-tune vocals. But no, you know what? No one gave them shit because it's about like the taste of how you sample or like how you present something that matters. It's not necessarily what it is that you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I never thought of it that is kind of, they did take something very monotonous and make it interesting, though, too. It was another way to look at it. You know, it's like
you never know how many degrees, like it could be, you never know how many degrees you can go. Like you can push something else to make it become a whole nother thing. Like maybe you just need to like loop it.
Yeah.
Like, and no one's thought of it yet.
Yeah, just keep going over. Almost like in Family Guy when they keep pushing that joke like way too far and then it gets funny again.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, it's exactly what it's
Except
like.
with music. I wanted to chat a little bit. So I suspect now that we've been talking that your background in working for a lobby firm and basically I'm guessing some sort of business, and that definitely helped you transition into making your music career viable.
Yeah. Well, before, I don't have anything in my nose, do I? I feel like I have some.
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, like it was interesting. When I graduated college in 2015, my dad and I had this really interesting, strange, kind of stupid idea to like, we formed like our own LLC, and then he like retired as like CEO of a company that he was in before. And he was like, you know what, like we can do this, like we'll do this like father and son like business idea. And it was basically like high level business development, not like we were like incredibly important people, sort of high level. I meant like in a technical sense, like how do we properly handle these equity splits and like develop this IP into like this sort of thing where we can take like the equity shares from it later on after the product has been widely distributed through, you know, like all this stuff. And like I had an English degree. So nice. I was like very articulate about how I thought about things and how things get explained, but I had no real like business acumen. So the most immediate thing that I did out of school was just like breathing through a fire hose of like just like all this like business stuff that like, but at that particular age you really shouldn't like understand, because that's like stuff you run into when you're like 45 and like you've climbed the ranks of like your Exxon like business sector, whatever.
Dang.
So like
you got a crash course then.
Yeah, and it was pretty merciless. And then so after that we sort of like I mean I had an internship with that particular firm here, and then went full time pretty shortly after, because it was like I knew the people, they trusted me, I trusted them. It was like they knew I was hardworking and I was young, I was very fresh, it was very new.
Yeah.
But like it was sort of like just a good deal. It was like, you know, most of us are like older and, you know, you're like fresh blood, and like it was just a good setup there. And so I did that for a while, and you know, like paid the bills, and like it was going to be a good path. But like I just had this, you know, really aggressive pull in my heart to do something that like really mattered. And I understood when I quit that it was going to be really hard. Like a lot of people like romanticize what it's like to go full time, but like I still don't make bank. I mean, I get like $1,000 a month from hundreds of thousands of Spotify streams, and then like I just got on the radio like 4 months ago, you know what I mean? And I think like through Sound Exchange, like songwriter radio royalties are like, I mean, $6-7 grand if you own 100%. So I'll probably get like a few grand per song that I put on there. So it's like, you know, you're still scraping by really. And then there's publishing royalties. And I actually started a side, that's just such a crazy story. So I started a side project too, which we could talk about more if you want, but
sure,
it's basically like lo-fi hip hop.
Okay.
And it's only on Spotify basically. and I called it. It was just a joke at first. It was like, this is a prime marketing experiment, and it was to supplement my income as Morgin Madison. So like, I was like, let me make some hip hop infused like lo-fi beats, like low fidelity, just like shitty, like fuzzy beats that are rustic around the edges and like kind of hipster.
Sound like it's coming off of a tape deck or something.
Right, exactly. And I was like, because there's a lot of, this is another playlist thing. I looked it up, and there's like a huge passionate playlist community that likes to study the lo-fi beats.
Oh, okay.
And so like, I created this artist name. I was like, I'm going to call it Not Yourself, because like, I don't know, like that was the most hipster thing I could come up with. Made my profile picture on Spotify, just like me with a hood on and like a white block over my eyes. And then put out like a bunch of lo-fi hip hop songs, and like multiple songs got picked up. So like my Not Yourself alias gets like over 2,000 streams a day on Spotify. Like it just like sits around at like 27,000 monthly listeners. And then I just absorb the income from that.
Oh,
and it's entirely based on playlisting. And the craziest part is that like you'll see like a lot of people like in future bass or like dubstep that are like into bass music, and they like really care about like their art and everything like that, but like can't quite find the right market for it unless they get signed to like, you know, 7 Lions record label or like one of those bass heavy labels. But the thing is, just like it was kind of like an example of like the power of playlisting and like correct marketing and things like that. But that's totally off topic. I just wanted to explain that, because like it's not just as Morgin Madison. There's like 2 things there that really like propped me up and helped me keep going.
And one was just a gamble.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it was, I mean, I think I spent less than 2 hours making, like, I think the top song's called like Morning Coffee. It just starts, it's literally like 1 minute and 40 seconds of just this loop with like a guitar, and I just put like a bunch of distortion on it and made a cool beat.
Yeah.
And just put it out, and that was it. And now it's got like 310,000 streams or something like that.
Dang.
So it's like, yeah, it's just about like knowing where it's going to go and everything like that. But anyway, sorry about that side thing. Yeah, it definitely did help, because like it helped me from a business sense too. Like when you start like getting like record deal contracts, like a lot of people just kind of sign them off.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So like
I actually worked in admin for a mental health clinic, and so we billed Medicaid, and so I was in charge of human resources and
that's
policy.
Gotta be like,
yeah, so like I did that for a few years, and that was one of the most boring jobs as far as that's concerned, like the policy end. You know, I spent like 25% of my time just like on like policy and procedure and how to execute things.
You're
and
like,
how things
just
need
looking
to be
like, oh my God,
written and stuff, you know. And then, but the thing is, after doing that, now I can look at a contract and I can be like, okay, well, this is important, this is important. And and the thing is people don't think about that a lot of times when they do sign those. I mean, I don't know about musical,
they don't,
you know, but just in general in life, when you're at a bank or whatever, you know, and you're opening an account, like a lot of those things are pretty applicable, you know, and you get nailed with overdraft fees because you're not careful. It's like, oh, okay, well, it's all in this fine print and it affects you negatively, you know?
Yeah. I mean, dude, like,
so you read your contract then?
Yeah. Like I read my stuff, because like a lot of people don't realize like, most of the, like some of the labels that I've worked with, have like the backing of, and it doesn't say publicly, like it'll say like the label name, and like you'll know the DJ or music producer who's really popular that started the label. And then you'll get the contract, and I started reading it, and this is pretty standard for like when you start to get traction, people want to sign you. Not only do they want to sign your track, like what you want to think is you want to think, gee, like they believe in my project, like I think they want me to do multiple songs with them. Like, that's so sick. Like, I'm just going to sign this, and like, they'll like me because I'm like chill to work with and everything like that. So, but it's like not like that at all. So you'll find like options in the contract. I think multiple times I caught them that say, you know, if the song we're working with you on meets 1 million streams, which it probably will based on their promotional setup, you are obligated to give us first dibs over your next release ready master. So it's like,
so if you do well, you're ours.
Yeah.
You're
and
ours.
Then, well, yeah, if they call it back too, because like a lot of people like won't read the contracts, and then later on they'll be like, so for example, like if I just willy-nilly signed a contract, like one of the I got a song coming out with a label called Night Vision, which is like a subsidiary of Warner Brothers because of their promotional setup in the back end. And when I first was looking over the contract, for instance, I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but who really cares? But like, I was first looking it over, and like there was this provision in there that's like, if the song passes, X threshold, basically like you're obligated to do another thing. And I was like, I eventually negotiated that out and upped my end because I was polite about it and very like communicative. And I was like, I really want to work with you guys because I think this is a perfect fit. However, like I don't really know if it's in my best interest to take this deal. It's like 80% in your favor or whatever. So like we negotiated it out, and I started to realize I looked at other artists that have like worked with labels in similar situations, and you'd see like they would put out a single with like X label and X, Y, or Z label. And then like 2 years down the line, when the artist is like really popped off, that particular label will come back and say like, hey, there's this tiny little option in our contract. Like you got to come back and do a single with us. And so they will be like 2 years deep into their record recording contract with like the label they're at with right now. And this other label will come out of the blue, and it's your fault because you didn't read the freaking option.
Oh,
so
shoot.
it's like, oh, like, no, like I got to leave my deal with this other one. I got to breach this contract to go and fulfill this contract because I didn't look at the option, So
wow.
God knows what that's going to do like with the one you have over here. But like, it's really like, it can be as much or as little a problem like as you want it to be. Like as long as you're professional and you work with them, like I'm sure you can work stuff out. But you don't want to be in a situation where you just took a bunch of contracts because you knew it was going to get like 2 million streams because of the label's setup. Like you want to look it over, because if you have 5 outstanding contracts where they can call back a master under certain thresholds, like you're pretty much screwed.
Yeah.
Like I think it took Metallica. Like Metallica only like a few years ago got the rights to their masters back.
Oh wow!
Because the outstanding claim of the label's license on those masters was like 40 years or whatever.
Dang, that's the yeah. I mean, that was quite the stranglehold that a lot of the record labels had on musicians back in the day. I was actually there's Billy Corgan did an interview recently
on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, did you listen to that one? Yeah, that was super awesome. Very enlightening as far as like, because you could tell that he had basically matured a lot since Smashing Pumpkins became famous, but he realized that was in hindsight that it wasn't their best option. The way that they negotiated the contract,
and he was the main songwriter.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, you heard it there. He was like, basically like, that's the other thing too. Like guys who do what I do are like a single project. Like I am a songwriter. I do all the mixing, all the mastering, like, which is another boat. Cause usually you gotta like, if you're a band, you just play the instrument. Yeah. Like someone, like your lead singer's writing the song. It's another share. And then like, you gotta hire a mixing engineer, gotta hire a mastering engineer. And like after all that's done, like the major label's taking 80%. Yeah. And like they're giving you like a 360-degree deal where they pay for like your tour, and at the end, like the whole band ends up actually being like $100K in debt. Like unless you keep going. So like, and then Billy on the podcast, like Joe Rogan was like, hey man, like what percentage of like bands that actually sign like major label deals do you think actually end up being all right? He's like, maybe 10%. And I think that's generous. And it's true. Like,
yeah, that's crazy.
If you go back and you look at all these,
because they're doing all right. Yeah. The labels are fine.
Yeah. Well, they don't care. Yeah. I mean, it's like,
it's a business though, I guess that's, we were talking about Cake earlier, and that's kind of one of those things that, because they do a lot of their own independent stuff. I think I can't remember their record label that they're with, but I don't know. They produce all their own stuff too, which is why I'm a huge fan of that, because you can hear the evolution of their skills in working in a studio over the course of their first album versus their more recent stuff. Like, it's their first album is pretty rough. Like just like straight garage band. Yeah. I mean, it was, I probably would have been done early 90s too, but yeah, it was super rough, but they did it themselves, like they figured out how to work the soundboard. They figured out how to do all the sound adjustments and all the balancing and mixing on their own, which is pretty slick. But they said you can either explain how to do it. You can either try to explain to somebody how to do it, and then basically accept the compromise between that miscommunication, or just figure out how to do it yourself.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's always better to like just dive in and like figure it out, because then you have universal control later on, Yeah. But I mean, props to them. I didn't actually know that about Cake. Yeah. Yeah, they do so cool. They do all their own stuff, all their own studio work. When you were a drummer, did you ever play any groups at all? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we were shit. Yeah. But and that didn't inspire you. You get inspired on your Well, the thing about drums
on your
was like,
computer?
I was like a technical metal drummer.
Okay.
So like I would play a lot of like Periphery and Animals as Leaders and like all this like crazy like 7/4 time signature kind of crap.
Okay.
And I actually like I think it was during like a Slipknot song. I was playing like the Heretic Anthem by Slipknot, where it's just like double bass the entire time, and it was just like, and it was like that was my thing. It was like my feet were faster than my hands, and like I had like the fastest feet at like around. Like just no one could do double bass the way I was doing it. But the problem was, I was an ignorant ass, and when I was doing the double bass, like I would my heel on my right foot would be fine because I'd have proper technique, but on my left foot, I would just pound my foot into the pedal with a stiff foot. So I would just stiffly like pound my foot into there. So I eventually developed like a really severe case of plantar fasciitis.
Oh, wow.
So now I don't play the drums anymore. I just like, it's just like, because on multiple fronts, it's like, why? You know, I'm going to injure myself. Plus it's like, you know, with what I do now, I can actually build like a piece of art that has like meaning. Whereas before I was just banging the hell out of stuff, and it was like you got an endorphin rush, but like I couldn't really, because then it's, even with drums, it's like even with guitar, it's like you have to find like 3 or 4 other people that are on the same page, on the same skill level before you can even make the good art. And then after you make the good art, you got to get a proper like marketer, like graphic designer, mixing engineer, mastering engineer, like all this other stuff. So it's like, it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, it is. Playing with people can be difficult, especially if all of a sudden money gets thrown into the equation. Not that I don't have a huge amount of experience with that, but I've been paid to play at bars, you know, versus just playing there for free. And it's like, and then it turns into this interesting dynamic with everybody, and
the true colors start to come out.
Yeah,
and you may not have known. You may have played with them for like 5 years.
It's like for like $40, you know. At the end of the night, it's like where everybody's concerned about who's showing up the most to practice, and you know.
Yeah,
it's almost I tell people about this because I had a couple bands that actually did like really enjoyed it, but at the same time it's like dating multiple people is the closest like I can get to describing it to people. Is like when you're playing in a band, it's like if you have like several girlfriends and you're still trying to like appease like that entire group dynamic, it's really hard.
Yeah, dude, I can't even I still remember in high school, like when I quit the band and the guitarist was like, "What the hell, man?" Like he wouldn't talk to me for like a year after that. He was like, "You just broke us up. Like that was our life. Like, what are you doing?" And
our future is ruined.
I was like, "Dude, I'm sorry. Like I don't feel." And that's the other thing too with a band. It's like rarely do you ever feel like you're actually getting your full like art out. You know, which is it's a cliche, but it's like a really big deal. You know, if you're a guitarist, and you're the shit. Which obviously mostly in rock bands guitarists are, like there's a reason why guys like Frank Zappa or like his son are the band. Like the rest of the guys are just touring members or like permanent members, but the band is like, you know, Frank Zappa's band or like Steve Vai. Yeah. It's like no one, you know, it's like it is Steve Vai. And it's like if you're in a band where you have to fully compromise, sometimes it's like you never really
Well, I mean, you just listen to the Beatles stuff and you can tell who wrote which song.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
And the bands that all sound cohesive, it's one person most likely just writing those songs, or maybe a couple people collaborating. But you're right. A lot of times it's just there's background musicians.
Yeah, man, it's kind of sad, but it's like, you know, it's kind of like, well, at least like you get to, you know, if you can learn to like trust like you know, Freddie Mercury, for example, like Freddie's the shit. Like he's iconic. You know, we're just gonna like stick Freddie at the front of Queen, and like, you know, that's okay. Like you know, in the back scenes we can argue about who writes which songs, but like, you know, it's almost advantageous to like have one person sort of be like the front head of the brand. Really,
when it goes well, then it's amazing. But it's very easy to have it fall apart with so many people.
Yeah. Huh. Yes, I can't even imagine. I've never really been in that situation. So
when's the best time for you to write music? When does it usually come to you? That was one of my questions.
I don't really know.
Is it randomly? Do you sit down?
Yeah, like I'll just like.
Are you disciplined about it, or is it just? Oh, okay.
Yes, I wake up every day and I get my coffee, and then I'll have like, I know when certain waves come and like when they don't, and then I'll take like entire days just to work on like marketing infrastructure and like go over like how are things set up, like am I ready to work with this person, or like got like very like organized Dropbox folders of all my legal setup, and it's all there, but like. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Like sometimes, like the other day, like a couple days ago, it was like the end of the day, and I was feeling really stuck. So I just loaded up a new project, and dragged like a synth that I don't usually use into the project, put a kick drum in it, and then just like probably one of the coolest songs I've ever made in my entire life just came out like in one night. It was just there.
Oh, nice.
And like I went to bed, I was like, because usually as like a producer, like you get a few bleeps and bloops or whatever, like you get a cool beat going, and like the euphoria of the idea is like in your head, and so you're pumped about it. Then you wake up the next day and you open the project, you're like, man, I got to hear that again. Like I was so passionate about it, and it starts playing. It's just like, and it's like, you know, like really anticlimactic. But I turned it on like, what's today, Sunday? Like it turned it on like yesterday morning, and I was like, God damn, like it's real. Like how did this happen? Like just honestly don't even remember it. So I don't know.
Well, how much of your time do you spend on the creative end, and how much do you spend on the admin?
Well, I mean, if you include like in creative, like actual music making, it's probably like 50.
Okay.
Or yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it too. It's like I do a lot of work since I'm just like one guy. I've done a lot of my own album artwork.
Okay.
And so there's a lot that goes to it. Like,
do you do like Photoshop, and do you draw?
Yeah. Well, I used to have Photoshop too, but now I've developed relationships with like friends like that are also in the industry from like different states and people. We help each other out. Like I'll master their album, and like for instance, like the friendship I have with this guy named Josh. He like for my very first show in August, like he drove 5 hours to Cincinnati with his guitar just to show up and play guitar over Sensational Love while I was DJing. And
oh, cool.
So like he's like really good graphic designer, but he like makes like he does like orchestral work and like film scores.
Okay.
So he's not too keen on like how to like get all the frequencies aligning right and like mastering the tracks. So like our deal is basically like with the Destination
parametric
GP
EQ and all that stuff to make sure that you're not covering up the vocal.
Yeah, man. Like, and I'm all about that stuff. It just like kind of comes out, and I found my own way to do it, and it works really well. And so basically, he was like, he did all the art for the Destinations EP, and then I mastered a lot of his work. Like I think one of his film scores, like a short film, and then I mean it's just stuff like that because like a lot of times on the come up, like a mastering engineer for a proper master is going to be like $300 for like a single.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you just sit down for like literally a month and study mastering and get the right stuff, like you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
Like it's just about like training your ear, and it's a lot of hard work, and it sucks ass. And like, it's really sucks, but it's so worth it because like, you know, later on you don't want to have like a situation where all you did was like produce the song, you know, and like everyone else just took it and like made it great. It's like, I don't know. It kind of turns me off a bit. I'm sure people are going to yell at me later and be like, "It's you need to have someone else mix your songs because they have an objective ear." And I'm definitely sure that that's a good thing to do. But like, I feel like in my particular position, like I know what sounds good. Like, and there's a lot of people in the industry who do that. So
yeah,
like Cake, for instance. You know,
yeah, Cake. Yeah, there's a perfect example. Yeah, I definitely feel your pain on that end because I've been trying to learn all that with the sound. So my sound experience comes from we shot our first feature film with a Soccer Mom camera, and a friend of ours had nice microphones, nice boom microphone. I don't remember, it's Audio Technica or something like that, like $500 microphone.
Yeah.
And so he was there for about 3/4 of the time, and the other 3/4 of the time we didn't get any audio, and so I had to learn how to try to balance like the microphone and then go back in and then have people ADR and then like layer lines in over the top. And it's janky. Like it's janky to this day, but like when I go back and listen to it, I'm like, I've progressively gotten better, but there's so many different things that you have to take into account. Yeah. And then if we're in a place like this and you're recording an actor's voice into a microphone like this, even if it's the same one that you use live, it's going to sound different than if you're
there's so many different like
or outside
acoustic conditions.
Yeah, it's just nuts. And so I've spent a lot of time on an EQ slider just moving it little nudge by nudge to try to get it like that much better.
Yeah.
And then it never ever is 100% perfect.
Nope.
And then every time I go back and listen to it, I can catch every little thing. And so then I just take it to somebody else. And I'm like, "Hey, watch this." And then if they don't say anything, I'm like, "We're good."
Yeah.
They can't tell that I layered that up later.
It's never perfect, man. It's just never like
Dang. We're at an hour too. I was going to ask you one last question. I usually end on a question from one of my friends, and his name's Wes. I call him the Abyss. He comes
Wes the Abyss.
Wes the Abyss.
Okay.
One of his questions is, what should people study?
Like in general?
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know. Usually when you have to study, you don't know what you like. So that's a really hard question, man.
It is. He comes up with tough ones.
What a strange, just existential crisis of a question.
Yeah. So if you know him though, he's very regimented. He takes he'll take 4 hours to study. He doesn't go to school, but he'll have
oh really?
Yeah, he'll be like, I'm gonna go study. What are you gonna study today, Wes? I don't know. And
then whatever trips you trigger.
Yeah.
It's like if I can go back to college, I probably would have done a lot of astronomy or something.
Oh, there we go.
Something like additive, biology or astronomy. I remember, well, oftentimes though, the stuff that you love is always the hardest. But I mean, I would definitely go with that. Definitely not what's easy. I don't know. I always thought in college, studying economics or business is kind of redundant. It's I'm not really passionate about this. It's this is basically what I need to know.
Yeah.
To subsist. When I start doing what I'm passionate about. You know what I mean? It's why would, I don't know. Maybe
the business end too. I have friends that went that route, and then I was at one point I was like, well, am I going to go down this working at this clinic and get into the admin side, and then so it's do you get an MBA? And so I'd call my friend. He's like, well, if you need the label, but he's like, at this juncture, you're really not going to learn anything. You're just going to go sit in there for.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
X
know.
amount of hours. I suppose you know, if you went to go get your MBA, they'd probably be asking you questions on how you market on Spotify and social media in your classroom. You know what I mean? That's not in the book.
No, it's not. It's really not. And most of the time, if you go get a business degree or whatever the hell you think is going to be the most applicable, oftentimes you're going to be working right under the person that just went out and did it. You know what I mean? Because you need to know that stuff, yeah, but if you're not going to train your mind to come up with the new ideas or establish your own thing, it's kind of you're never really going to reach that point where you're actually doing something that you want to study anyway, I feel or
yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense. But.
Yeah, because eventually I maybe it's just me though, it's that entrepreneurial spirit is what people gravitate towards, and it's funny that you even can get a degree in entrepreneurship, but it just seems so ironic that you would sit in a class and have somebody lecture you, and then you go out and do something that you're passionate about. Why do you need to have somebody tell you for 4 years?
I don't fucking know. I don't know.
Not to rip on all these business degree people out there listening to us right now.
Yeah, they're probably fuck that guy. And I don't know. Just do something you're passionate about. Most of the time, it's not going to work. You just need to accept that. That's the way it goes, you know. And and just figure it out,
just like you did.
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of if it works, that's awesome, and then keep up the relentless self-criticism to a healthy extent, and then you'll be okay.
Just keep out of that depressive zone, and to where you're still productive.
Be borderline on the depressive zone, and then sort of try to keep yourself out of
just in that range between almost super depressed and almost way too anxious to be able to function.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, well, thanks for coming on, Morgan.
Yeah,
and
man.
You're going to be playing at TreeFort. I don't think we have the dates yet, but just let me know, and I can attach it on the comments and stuff on YouTube to the video.
Yeah, I don't think I'm supposed to say. I do, I know I'm playing on the
Cool.
But yeah.
There you have it.
So we'll figure it out.
You can give me the time and the venue and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's
that sounds perfect, man. Yeah, cool. Absolutely.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Who are you? Singing as I stare from afar. I once knew someone who would sing where you are. Now your melodies calling my name as It's a similar sensation, similar sensation. Now your melody is stuck in my brain. It's a typical sensation. I'm feeling that sensation, love. Typical sensation, love. Feeling that sensation, love. Typical sensation, love. Feeling that sensation, love. Feeling that sensation, love. Sensation, love. Feeling that sensation, love. Your melody is calling my name. It's a similar sensation, similar sensation. Now your melody is stuck in my brain. It's a typical sensation. I'm feeling that sensation, love. Your melody is calling my name. It's a similar sensation, similar sensation. Now your melody is stuck in my brain. It's a typical sensation. I'm feeling that sensation, love. Typical sensation, love. Feeling that sensation, love. Typical sensation, love. Your melody is calling my name. It's a similar sensation, similar sensation. Now your melody is stuck in my brain. It's a typical sensation. I'm feeling that sensation, love. Typical sensation, love. Feeling that sensation, love. Typical sensation, love. Feeling that sensation, love.